There's this whole movement now about grit, and they call it the hustle or perseverance or staying power. How hard should you expect to work in the early days of a new business? Should I expect to work 12, 14 hours a day? What's your opinion on that, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I think 12 to 14 hours a day, I know myself, and I know when I'm getting past a 12-hour day, my mind is getting exhausted and it's hard to sustain, and you're diminishing returns. You're not adding value anymore. Go take a nap, go have a glass of wine, go get to bed, whatever it is. Let me talk about failure for a second, if you don't mind. I know you brought up the book. And I think if there's one thing in my 31 years that I figured out is how to see failure as a gift. I truly believe that, yes, you've got to work hard, to your question, but you got to be willing to make some mistakes while you're working hard, and you've got to learn from those mistakes. The mistakes become the business school teaching that you need to get to the next level. While I, didn't do well in school and dropped out of high school, dropped out of college, I love learning. But to me, failure is my teacher. My dad's a doctor, liver transplant surgeon. You don't want a transplant surgeon ever failing, right? Life or death. You have to go to school. You got to study and get it right. But in business, I think a lot of us learn from starting a franchise, or from another mentor, or from getting out there and doing it and building it on the street. So, the book, what's interesting, a little story there was Roy H. Williams, the Wizard of Ads. He's a partner of ours, advertising partner. He does our radio creative. And I remember every year when we'd go see him in Austin, Texas, he's like, Brian, you got to write a book. And I just kept saying, like, Roy, I'm not an entrepreneur that has the ego to need to have a book out there. I don't want to write a book. I hardly read books. It's not my thing. And he goes, Brian, it's not about you. He said, it's about the stories that you and your people can tell and have to tell that will make a difference in the world. And I said, really? You think our stories will make a difference? He goes, Brian, there's so much there in your 31 years. Get out there and we're going to tell these stories. So he took me to his Wizard's Tower, a real place on his ranch, and locked the door and mic'd me up. And we had a couple of bottles of wine, or maybe more, over those 10 hours. Yeah. And he said, let's get story after story after story out and documented. We took this transcript, and he and I worked back and forth to start the first manuscript for the book. I kept saying to Roy throughout the process, what's the title of the book? And he goes, Brian, stop asking what the title is. I go, but I'm a branding guy. I start with Wow One Day Painting and we build the business, or Shack Shine, or 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I love names. Because it doesn't work that way in books. He goes, I've written 12+ books. I know what I'm talking about. Trust me. So we wrote the book, and he said, the title will jump out once we finish the manuscript. And he was right. Because we looked at the book and went, WTF, there are so many failures in here. It was failure, growth, failure, growth, failure, growth, back and forth over 31 years. And I realized the title needed to be Willing to Fail. But what was more important was that I realized failure has always been a gift for me. And I believe failure is a gift to anybody if you'll allow it to be. So you've got to look at failure and go, okay, dark day, tough moment, something's not working right now. But what am I going to learn from this that will allow me to be better? Firing my 11 employees. Terrible day for them, terrible day for me, but one of the best decisions I ever made, because it helped me build a company that's all about people, finding the right people and knowing how to treat them right.